What's up guys, my name's Julie. Welcome back to the Curity Curvy. Today I want to do some really fun thrift flips with you all. So I make most of my clothing. If you are a consumer of my content, then you already know that. But I also really enjoy a good thrifting trip. And lately all of my feed has been thrift with me style videos, and I've just been overly influenced. And so I've been in the thrift stores and I've picked up some things. And sometimes after the thrill of the treasure hunt wears off and you bring those things home, you put them on your body and you realize they're not quite right. So is the case with the three things that I am going to talk about and show you today. I have a dress, I have a denim skirt, and I have a I think it's a tablecloth. All three of those things, for the two garments, they're both ill-fitting, but I feel like the potential is there. I know that the skirt is going to be a really quick thrift flip. That's going to be more of a tailoring situation where I'm not changing the garment in any way, I'm just making it fit my body. The dress is definitely going to be a flip, and then the tablecloth is also going to be a flip because I can't wear a tablecloth. So without further ado, let's get into it. This is the first piece. It is this gorgeous red maxi velvet dress. Definitely a jumper style dress, perfect for layering, perfect for fall. The color so reminds me of picking strawberries from the fall, which if you're from Florida, then you know. And yeah, it gives me all of those autumnal vibes, but the fit is off. So one, it is definitely too long. It has a kick pleat in the back, which makes, walking in it very easy, but I just feel like the length and the silhouette are throwing me off. Furthermore, it has two very awkwardly placed patch pockets. They sit right above my hip, and I don't know what's the rationale for having a patch pocket of this size and in that placement. Kind of eludes me. I also would love to take in the size of this, but I feel like that might be doing too much because I still want it to be able to slip over my head. Initially, I was thinking I would like it in a midi version, but then I was like, maybe I'll like it in a mini. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna first cut it in a midi version, and then if I don't like it in the midi version, I'll take it up to a mini version. I also want to move the patch pockets maybe to the back of the dress. Maybe I won't do that, but I think first things first, I'm gonna go ahead and chop off the bottom of the skirt to see if I like it as a midi version and if I want to keep working it from that point forward. So I made a really big mistake in that I didn't measure it on my body before I cut it, and it's no longer in the realm of midi. Midi is completely off of the table at this point, and it's hitting now where I cut it basically at my shoulders or at my knees, excuse me. So there's no choice other than for it to be a mini. So I'm going to put it on my body and properly figure out where I want it to fall in order for it to be a mini, so to not make the same mistake twice. Then I'm gonna cut it one more time. This is not ideal because I was really thinking having a midi style layering dress would be a good option in my closet, but gotta keep going. Okay, so since I've chopped off basically half of the skirt. I have a lot of scraps left over, and instead of throwing these in the scrap bin, I'm actually going to put them to use. I have a little mini bag pattern. I originally bought it off of Etsy, but the listing is now gone, which is kind of a bummer, so that means I can't link it below. But I think that the scraps would be just enough to get that pattern out of, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut that out. It should be a relatively quick sew because there are no fastenings. It's literally just like the front, the back, and one single strap. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that cut out and see if I can get a matching bag out of this. I have realized that I am missing a piece from that pattern, which is basically the gusset, and I can't make it without it. Luckily, even though the pattern is no longer listed on Etsy, because she relisted it, she kind of changed it and relisted it, which I don't love that because I still paid for the original pattern, but whatever. The pattern is no longer available on Etsy. She does have a graphic up on the original video of the pattern, and it gives the measurements for the gusset. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use those measurements to create the gusset. I don't love that idea, and it's going to now take a little bit longer than I was hoping this project would take, but I'm just gonna go ahead and use the measurements, like I said, that are given for the gusset. And then I will cut out the pattern pieces. Project is officially taking on a life of its own. So I have the bag all cut out, and I have this scrap left. This is from the second time that I took length off of the dress, and I think I can make like a bow accessory for my bags with it. Those are like really in and definitely having a moment. And when I was thrifting with my niece this past summer, she thrifted a little bow, like it was a hair clip bow, but she clipped it onto her tote bag, and I thought that was just like the cutest thing. And I've really been into tote bags. Shameless plug, but I just released a tote bag pattern. If you're interested, it will be linked in the description box below. Check it out. But she clipped a little bow on her tote bag, and I just thought it was the cutest thing. So I feel like I have enough to get a bow out of, and I may have some clips, or I can probably thrift a clip to make like a little bow clip to go onto my tote bags. So I think I'm gonna do that as well with the last bit of fabric left over. But before I get to that point, I'm gonna go ahead and start putting together the bag, which now that I'm looking at it, I don't have the actual instructions. I don't know what happened to the pattern originally, but I need to go back and rewatch the video just to like familiarize myself with how to put it together. And then we'll put the bag together, and we'll see how I feel about the bow, or if I wanna move on to the next thrift flip project. Okay, so first I'm just going ahead and I'm making the straps. I'm just using like the loop turning method, where you sew the fabric together, right sides together, and then using a safety pin, I'm going to turn that right side back out. Next, I'm going ahead and I'm taking the elastic that I cut earlier, and I'm feeding it into that strap. And this is what is going to give the strap that scrunchy-like effect. Before I move on to constructing the rest of the bag, I am just securing that elastic within the strap. And now I am going to first pin the gusset to the bag, and then I am going to go ahead and sew the gusset to the front and the back panels, and obviously doing this for the bag as well as the lining. And as I'm attaching the gusset to the bag, I am being very careful to make sure that neither the bag nor the gusset is slipping away from what should be the stitching line, just so that I have an even seam allowance all around that bag. Now, the body of this bag has some shaping that is done through adding pleats on the top edge of the bag. So that's what I'm going ahead and doing now, is just putting in and pinning those pleats so that I can stitch them down later. This bag in the original pattern doesn't have any closures, so I went ahead and I made some ties to make a little bow closure on the top. So I'm pinning those ties to the bag, and then I am going to sandwich the ties, the strap, and the inner part of the bag, or the main body of the bag, into the lining so that I can go ahead and stitch everything closed. Now that all those pieces have been pinned together, I'm just stitching the entire edge of the bag closed using 3/8 of a seam allowance, which is what the pattern calls for. There's also a hole in the bottom of the bag, so I didn't close up one side of the lining so that I can later pull the bag through, which for you will literally be in a couple of seconds. Now, as I aforementioned, I'm just turning that bag right side out through that hole, which I am going to go back and hand stitch closed. I'm also going to take the bag to my iron after I get everything turned right side out and give it a really good press. So at this point, we have two pieces from that red dress. The bag came out super cute and the dress is perfect now. I have a wee bit of that fabric left, and like I said, I am very invested in attempting to use up all of the scraps. So I want to try and make a little bow from this. Like I said already, it should be relatively simple, like just 2 rectangles. I mean, bows aren't that hard to make. If I'm not mistaken, I have like these little remnants here. This looks like a good little chunk here, so I'm sure I can incorporate that into the bow. Based off of the size of the fabric, I think it's going to be a pretty nice size bow. It should take a couple of minutes to do, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I think we will pick this up either tonight or tomorrow. I'll check back in with you when I check back in with you. What's up? So it is obviously the next day. Yesterday I finished the dress and the bag and I started on the bow. For you, that was a couple of seconds ago, but I am going to kind of begin where I ended, which is finishing off the bow, and then I kind of want to start working on the like make from scratch thrift flip. Anyways, I'm gonna start off with finishing the bow that I started yesterday, and then we're going to move on to this project. In order to make the bow, I took 2 rectangles of that scrap fabric, wrong sides together, sewed them up, leaving a little hole, and then I pulled them through and edge stitched the entirety of that rectangle, closing up that hole. Now I've scrunched up the middle of the bow to give it that bow shape, and I'm just taking my needle and I'm trying really hard, as you can see, struggling to pull the needle through, and then taking that thread and wrapping it around the center a couple of times to secure it. After I do that, I'm going to take that little piece of rectangular fabric you see over in the corner of the screen, and I'm going to hand stitch that down to create like the loop that goes around the center of the bow. And here I am just hand stitching that loop in place to secure it. Okay, the bow is done, and originally I was gonna put like a tail end on the bow, which I don't know, I may still do, but I kind of like it like this, especially since it's meant to be like a bag accessory. I don't have the clips that I thought I have, so I'm gonna look at my safety pins. I know I have a bag of safety pins that I thrifted a little while back, and see if I have some safety pins that I can just clip onto here and then use that to pin it to a bag. But that's that. So now we're going to go ahead with the vest. Let me grab the tablecloth and show you. This is the tablecloth that I thrifted. I paid $7 for it. It's 100% cotton, and as you can see, it is nice and thick, and I think would be perfect for a layering piece. So I have a vest pattern that I self-drafted last year, I want to say, and I want to use that pattern for this. It's like a cropped, soft, square, like rounded neck vest, and like I said, I think I want to use this fabric for that. The only thing with that pattern is that it's closed with ties, and this is kind of thick, and I think trying to get ties out of it might be a little bit tricky. I even thought of using the tassels as ties, but I think that would be ugly. I don't know that I have any fabric in my stash that would coordinate well with it, so I am going to check for that. I do have a little bit of this left over. Let's see how those look together. Okay, so I have a little bit of the red left over, and I could use that for ties. I feel like up close you get it, like you understand where I'm going, but I think from far back it gets a little lost, so I'm just not sure which direction I want to go with. Also, the pattern that I made is meant for a quilted fabric. This is not quilted, and if I don't quilt it, then I have to like line the entire edge, or not line, but bias bind the entire edge of the vest, and I don't want to make that much bias tape, so I may line it. I could also just not put any ties on it and just have it as like an open front situation. I just don't know what that would fit like or fall like on my body, and I'm not in as much of an experimental mood today as I was yesterday. I kind of just want to go for what I know and get it done. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So first things first, I'm just going ahead and I am creating the ties for the vest. I decided to have 3 ties going down each side, and I'm folding them over as though I were creating bias binding, stitching that open end, and then also stitching the other end, because that's going to ultimately help the tie to lay nice and flat. This vest actually has a center back seam because I drafted it based off of my measurements for my body. My back is slightly sloped at the top, and so this just helps for shaping. So the first thing that I need to do is to go ahead and sew up that seam. After I do that, I'm going to sew the shoulder seams, but I'm not going to close up the side seams just yet. And then obviously what I do for the main body of the fabric, I am also going to do for the lining, but I'll do that off camera. Next, I'm going to take the lining as well as the outer fabric, and I'm going to pin those together along the neckline as well as like what would be like the front center, because that's going to be left open. And then I am going to sew those closed. However, I have missed a critical step, which I will talk to you about because I'll realize it in a couple of seconds. I started working on the vest. Mind you, I have no idea how I'm going to close this up because I'm pretty sure every version of this vest that I have made so far has been finished with bias binding. So, no idea how I'm going to close this up. But I figured something along the lines of the burrito method, so I went ahead and I started attaching everything on the neckline, and I forgot to add the ties. So now I need to seam rip this out, figure out the tie placement, shove the ties in there, and then finish stitching it. And then, like I said, I think I'm gonna attempt to do like a burrito method situation. I don't know if that's gonna work or not. At this point, I'm just like 1000% winging it. Okay, so the neckline is finished. Looking something like this, cute, we like. So I'm gonna go ahead and attempt to do the burrito method to finish up the arm side of the vest, and then I can close up the side seams, and then we can finish off the bottom. And that will be 3 completed pieces plus 1 accessory, and all 3 of those pieces have this red fabric in it, which I think is quite the accomplishment in and of itself. Very proud of that. Okay, so first things first, I'm going ahead and I am giving the burrito method a go. I did make a big mistake in that the burrito method specifically says you need to roll up the fabric before stitching the seam, as I am doing now. I didn't roll up the fabric, and I am definitely about to pay for that mistake. Now that that struggle is over, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close up the side seams using the same methodology of the burrito method. So just bringing them together as you see in a straight line and then stitching that down. And once that's been closed, I'm trimming the bulkiest part of the seam allowance so that when I do turn it back over and I press it, it will lay nice and flat. One of the last things to do is to close up the bottom edge, and I did that by just kind of shoving the vest in on itself so that I can bring right sides together with both the lining and the outer fabric. And then I'm just going to stitch that line, leaving about a 1 to 2 inch gap in the middle so that I can turn it back out on itself. And then in a little bit, you'll see me hand stitching that gap closed. interesting story. So I was getting ready to seam rip and take in what I needed to be taken in, and then I realized there was a dart in the skirt, but the dart in the skirt, where the placement was, looked like it would just be on one side of my back, which is completely incorrect. So I looked for another dart and I found another dart. So there are two darts, and the dart placement is basically the way I was wearing the skirt would be on like one front end and one back end of one side, which means that I have been trying the skirt on the wrong way, and that if I turn it, both of the darts are in the back and the zipper is actually on the side. And if I shift the skirt and wear it correctly, it fits just fine. So there is no need for a fourth and final thrift flip. I am so incredibly thrilled with how this dress came out. I initially was very concerned about the placement of the patch pockets. However, with the dress being so much shorter, I feel like that patch pocket placement just makes so much more sense. It gives like a mod 70s, 60s shift dress vibe, and I really adore it. I can see it being worn as is. Right now we're getting to that true transitional period where we're like in the low 80s, high 60s, and so it can be worn with an oversized cozy cardigan. I can see it being worn with leggings and boots or Mary Janes. I just feel like there are so many styling possibilities for that dress now that I think it's the thing I am most excited about for fall. It's something that I don't have in my wardrobe at this moment, and so it will definitely fill a gap and create for me new opportunities. Now, as you saw after that, I had the scraps left over because I ended up basically taking off the entire bottom of the skirt. And so the first thing I used those scraps for was this little bag. And again, tell me this is not the cutest little bag you have ever seen. I've made this bag pattern before, so it wasn't new to me, which is why I was able to pretty much breeze through it. But one of the issues that I found is that the lining is exposed. And so in the previous versions that I made, I used a different fabric for the lining. Luckily for this version, I had enough of that fabric to use it for the outer as well as the lining, so it just looks really clean and really seamless. I see a few threads that I still need to snip, but that's no issue. And then we have the vest. How incredibly good did this turn out? I am so impressed with myself for this one. When I saw this fabric, immediately I thought, yes, like this screams fall to me. Like this wants to be a fall something and not a tablecloth. And I feel like I picked the perfect pattern for it. Like I said, this pattern is a pattern that I created myself, and I don't have it listed or graded out yet. But if there is genuine interest in it, then let me know in the comments below, as I am slowly building out my pattern label or my pattern line or whatever, so let me know. But again, with this vest, I used some more remnants of that fabric to make the ties in the front. And initially, I wasn't sure if the color would play nicely with the vest, but I feel like it really does highlight the little red flowers that the vest already has. And so it feels like a perfect match. Also, in a very accidental manner, this vest is fully reversible. Let me flip it over and show you. So as you can see, this is the other side of the vest, and it is completely finished. And like I said, this was totally accidental. When I started this, I was not attempting to make a reversible vest. It just came down to what was the easiest way for me to finish it. Next, we have the bow, which is still missing a clip. I was hoping that I would be able to go and pick up a clip this morning, and I just didn't get around to it. But once I do, it'll be an easy fix to just pin on a bag or something like that. I'm really excited about this. This gives me more Christmas vibes than autumn vibes, but I still think that I'm gonna get some use out of it. And then lastly is the thrift flip that never was, which is this skirt that I thrifted. And like I said, I'd been trying it on and it was like sliding off of my waist. And as I was at the cutting table or at the sewing table getting ready to open up the waistband, I realized that there was a dart in it, and the dart wasn't where it was supposed to be in my mind. And then I saw another dart, and that is when it clicked for me that all this time I'd been wearing this skirt incorrectly. The zipper actually goes on the side. There are two darts in the back for shaping, and the front fits just fine, which means that the little flounce goes in the front of the skirt, and I'd been wearing the flounce on the side of the skirt. Anyways, the fact that I was wearing it incorrectly is the reason that it did not fit correctly. Yeah, shout out to this, the thrift flip that never was. All in all, I count this as a major success. I feel like it was a lot of fun creatively. Like, I think mentally I needed something that I could just be creative and be fun with, that had no restrictions and no real expectations. And I really feel like these projects checked that off for me. I'm really impressed with how much I was able to do with the scraps of that dress. It's a great reminder that, again, scraps don't always have to be discarded, but looking for creative ways to use them, because I would have never imagined that I could take the tie or take the scraps from that red dress and use it as ties to make the vest. But I was able to do that in the end. So I'm really happy with how all of this came out. You'll have to let me know in the comments below what you think. And until next time, stay beautiful, make great things. I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.